Hello and welcome to the Underhand Free Throws 2022-2023 season NBA predictions. We've never done a prediction show before this season, obviously, so how we structured this one is we get into our predictions and we'll have those later on in the week for the Eastern Conference. But before that, we're going to talk about a couple of the teams that were just really confusing or hard for us to rank in the standings for whatever reason. If you're impatient and you want to hear the predictions sooner, we're going to have those uploaded in our podcast form, and the links to our podcast on Spotify and iTunes are in the description of this video. So with that, let's get into some of the teams that were really hard for us to rank this season. The first team is the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Simon, let me ask you, give me your most difficult teams to predict in the Eastern Conference.
Well, I know the East has some really tricky ones. It just feels like there's a lot of good teams in the East this year. We know probably most of the ones that are going to be in the playoff picture at the end of the year, but which order they're going to fall in on the standings, that's a much tougher task. I will say the one that I've had the most trouble with, just trying to determine, are they going to be the 3 seed? Are they going to be the 6 seed? Are they going to be in the play-in? Has to be the Cleveland Cavaliers, just with how good they were last year, in combination with how young this team is and how young teams tend to improve, sometimes very drastically. And then, of course, the addition to Donovan Mitchell, which solves what was really their biggest weakness last year in just terms of having one more offensive creator at the end of games that they can go to and not have to be completely reliant on Darius Garland. So this is a team that I'm high on, but it's really hard to know how high to be on the Cavaliers. Like, are they in that upper echelon of the East yet, or are they still kind of one of the middle of the pack teams?
Yeah, last year they won 44 games, which is solid. Did not make the play-in tournament. Came close. Really, basically that team kind of came out last year and took the NBA by storm a little bit early on. With their they were the talk of the town when they were rocking this jumbo lineup where they had basically 3 guys 6'11" or taller playing the 3 forward positions or the 3 front court positions, and just kind of had this monster defense that no one could beat. And I feel early in, at one point they were 19-12 and they were looking to claim home court advantage in the Eastern Conference playoffs in a way nobody saw coming that early. And then the injuries just started to pile up. They lost Colin Sexton 6 games into the season. And people were sort of okay with that because it was addition by subtraction maybe, and that they weren't really sure how he was going to fit with their defensive identity. And Ricky Rubio was killing it, so it kind of opened up the void for him to do that. And then Ricky Rubio got injured. By the end of the season, it was Jared Allen went down for this big chunk and they lost a ton of games. Even Mobley missed a little bit of time. So they were just, they never had it. It wasn't their season, but they did enough early on, I think, to get people excited. I was excited about them this season, even before the Donovan Mitchell trade. I thought they were going to be sneakily fighting for home court advantage. And then they went out and, signed a fairly consensus top 20 player in the NBA to add to their young core. Yeah. What about them to you makes them so difficult to predict?
Well, one thing that was alarming was Donovan Mitchell is being brought in really to solve the issue of Darius Garland can't create everything at the end of games when the offense slows down and the defense of the opposing team tightens up. And so he needs a little bit of help on that end. They tried to trade for Karis LeVert to address that a little bit last offseason at the trade deadline. And it was an experiment that had mixed results. We'll just put it that way. Donovan Mitchell is obviously a better offensive creator than Karis LeVert, but he had his own issues with offensive creation late in games last year. Definitely the worst season of his career in terms of field goal percentage and scoring efficiency in clutch situations. So was that a function of him being in Utah on a team that had declining talent and he had possibly declining interest in being there? Who knows? But he's obviously surrounded with more talent in Cleveland, and is that going to be the boost he needs to get it back on track to being a closer, being a reliable, just offensive machine that is going to really help Darius Garland and just the Cavs in general be more effective offensively.
Yeah, even with Donovan Mitchell, sort of, like you mentioned, he didn't have the most efficient season shooting the ball, but I thought we saw in his game this really kind of maxed out offensive package in terms of his ability to both threaten with a pull-up three and attack the crowded paint and kick out to 3-point shooters. Like those were his three main strengths. And
Yeah.
he had those all. When I say maxed out, I don't mean he can't improve on any of those things, but he got those all to a level where he was just a very, very dangerous offensive player, and the kind of offensive player that you can build an entire offense around, even if he still has some big weaknesses in his game. Just like, a guy who can come off screens or even just create an ISO and pull up from deep while still threatening to sort of get to the rim. Once he gets into the paint, he was very good last year in Utah's system at kicking out to 3-point shooters. However, he was famously miserable with his interior passing in terms of like specifically getting the ball to Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
There was some pretty like alarming kind of sensationalized stats that got posted of like how few times he even passed the ball to Rudy Gobert in a game or over a season. And sometimes those stats look worse than they actually are. If you like watch every game and understand their offense, you know why those passes aren't going in. But it changed how I was watching Utah games, and I would notice like the way that he makes certain reads. He gets into the paint really easy and he kicks out very easily, but he really struggles to see. Like I noticed him missing Gobert's role a lot, and then like kicking to the corner. So is that the kind of thing where Donovan Mitchell has room to improve? Like, because interior passing is a little bit harder. It's tighter angles. You don't always have like the same vision. There's extra bodies being thrown at you. You have to be a little bit more proactive. Where kicking out to 3-point shooters can often be a little bit more reactive. You can kind of get into the paint, see both sides of the floor. You can even sometimes like jump and then still look. There's a lot of time to make that pass if the defense is coming a long way to meet you. Where the interior passes is very brief windows. So I think now that he's playing with two interior players all the time instead of with Rudy Gobert, where it was just like one guy on the inside all the time, it'll be interesting to watch Donovan Mitchell navigate tighter spaces. He also will have less creation responsibilities, though, playing next to Darius Garland.
I think it's too easy to really just pick apart teams when they have a noticeable flaw. And, for the Cavs, there's a couple. Is the spacing isn't as good as it could be. I mean, we just had a team win the title last year in the Warriors that didn't have perfect floor spacing at all times. So it's certainly possible to work around. And then I think
Boston too. Boston sometimes really struggles.
And Boston as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the three position does seem like a bit of a hole. This could be a trade team. They have the Chetty Osman contract at about $10 million a year. That is a really nice trade piece for probably a bench player, and not a true blue starter, especially because they don't have any picks left to trade after the Donovan Mitchell deal that they unloaded 3 firsts and 2 swaps for. So
yeah,
they're a little bit light on picks. They don't have a ton of flexibility with trades, but I do see them getting involved for a trade for a guy like Jay Crowder if they can.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not Crowder who is available, it's trading for a starting level wing that's going to move the needle is easier said than done, especially when you just gave up all of your draft capital. They also gave up a first round pick for Karis LeVert last year. So it's like the cupboards are not full of juicy little things to make that trade happen easier. So, more importantly than the small forward position, or what I said earlier about why they don't need a small forward as much as most teams do, is like Evan Mobley's going into his second year. He had an awesome rookie season. He looked like just one of the best defensive front court players in the NBA already in terms of his versatility. He reminded me a little bit of Kevin Garnett, like baby Kevin Garnett, second year Kevin Garnett to be specific. And if you match up their stats from when they're around the same age, because Kevin Garnett came out of high school and Mobley spent a year at USC. So if you look at Evan Mobley's rookie stats and Kevin Garnett's second year stats, they're a bit eerie. He's got that lanky guy fadeaway that I swear, like just it gives me goosebumps how similar it is. He's not quite as twitchy as Garnett was, but he's a little bit more like sort of like smooth and graceful. I'm not saying like Evan Mobley's going to be Kevin Garnett, but I'm watching his second year to see if that arc is a possibility. Because I mean, if he turns into Kevin Garnett, like, all these little nitpicking things we're talking about with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are going to matter a whole lot less, because that's just like they've got this like possible monster growing up on the youngest player on their roster.
Yeah, and that's why I'm really a huge fan of trading for Donovan Mitchell because I mean ultimately this team they have the two backcourt stars and Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. I think both those guys are going to be I don't know, the East is really talented right now, but at least borderline all-star candidates for years to come. And neither of those guys are even the best player on the team, projecting down the line. It's most likely going to be Evan Mobley, barring some sort of horrific injury. Having your second and third best players be, or I don't want to sell Jared Allen short. Having two of your top four players be Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, I would say you're really in good shape there.
One last thing I want to say about the Cleveland Cavaliers is like health permitting, they're bringing Ricky Rubio and Kevin Love off the bench. And those are two just like very, very smart gap fillers. Rubio as a sort of offensive orchestrator and a defensive player. Like if he's in their rotation, he's gonna like be helping them guard wings in ways that they're currently not able to. And Kevin Love is such a wheel greaser with his shooting and passing and his ability to duck in for post ups and operate at the high post. Like we're excited about those 4 stars, but there are other pieces on this roster that are really exciting. I don't want to hype the Cavs too much. Or I do want to hype the Cavs too much. Well, why not? What do I have to lose? If the Cavaliers had the best record in the Eastern Conference, I would not be shook by that. We'll talk later about where I actually have them projected, but like if there's a team that there's a couple teams in this league this year that could be very like just sneaky, take the league by storm. I think the Cavs are the most kind of obvious team that might be able to do that in a very crowded Eastern Conference.